Welcome to Pencils and Lipstick. This is a podcast for indie authors. I'm Kat Caldwell, novelist, short story writer, and book coach. Here on Pencils and Lipstick, we're obsessed with all things story, and it is my goal to bring you the writing tips that you need to make your novel come to life. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Pencils and Lipstick. This is episode 306 of the podcast, and life is a whirlwind right now. I am fitting this in between so many different things. You can't see it if you're on YouTube, actually, because I block out most of it. But there are boxes everywhere on my floor. I'm getting ready for an in-person next week. And then I have to take my daughter to volleyball for the other weekends. So life is busy. This week, I don't have an interview because I want to talk to you guys about reader magnets. Now, if you guys are listening in on Craft and Connect, you'll know that Becky will be in again next week, and we'll be talking about marketing, and we're going to be looking for our ideal reader, and a couple other things in marketing. And honestly, I have Becky coming in every month because marketing is something that does not come naturally to me, and I assume it doesn't come naturally to a lot of you. I think it's just one of those things, like some people just get it, and it is taking me forever to get it. And I think some of it is actually you have to get confidence. Even when you get it, you have to have the confidence to implement it. And so a lot of times we are looking for other ways to market that's maybe not like face, or, doesn't feel very salesy. And that makes sense, right? But one of those ways that we do it is through reader magnets. And I have to say, I think that I'm starting to get the marketing, maybe. We'll see what Becky says next week when she peruses my Instagram and tells me whether or not I'm getting it. But reader magnets, if you don't know what they are like these little extras. They are either used as a way to entice new readers to check out your writing and come onto your newsletter, usually. And then, they're already warm and you sort of get them to then buy the book. This is sort of that top of the funnel thing that marketers talk about, that I think a lot of times us writers are not super into. We don't like talking about it like that, but that's what we're doing. We're trying to find readers who don't know us, to get them used to what our writing is like, and then to sort of entice them, if they like it, to then buy the book, right? And so when I've been in indie writing since 2017, when I first published, and before that, when I was just trying my best to start early, and it didn't work very well for me. But this is where I hope things work better for you guys. Sorry, allergies. So back in 2017, a lot of people were like, give out extra scenes or deleted scenes or a short story related to your book. And I think that works for some people, but, raise your hand if you've ever heard that and we're like, what? Like deleted scenes? Like who's going to read the deleted scene if they haven't read the book? I don't know. That's not something that entices me. So I was always just like, oh, okay. I did write 2 prologues, like one for Stepping Across the Desert, because that's what they said to do. And I have a prologue for Bended Loyalty. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But I wanted to look beyond reader magnets, and I'm trying to now kind of go into different ways that we can do things. So because I'm doing my in-person event, I will be editing this out, but 1 second, I'm going to get something. I'll edit out that dead air for you all. But if you are on YouTube, you can see these. And if you aren't on YouTube, if you're listening audibly, you can look on my social media, because I will be putting these out this week as the podcast goes out. But in person, I actually went and made some bookmarks, if you guys can see them. And I did these through Canva. And honestly, they were the cheapest from anyone else. Unless you have access to a different printer, these were the cheapest. I got 50 by, I think I got 250 for 98, which includes shipping. So nothing's cheap, but they were the cheapest. So I did them for every single genre that I write, which is, or like series or standalone. So you don't have to do that. But they did come out really well, actually. I think, here we go. Like they're very clear. So I did one where I have, because Ben did loyalty, he is a musician. So I have like the Spotify playlist there. I think this one came out really, really well. This for coffee stains is Anna's checklist to survive a double shift because she works at a coffee shop. And then I have like the QR code where you can get it or get it on, get the free chapter or whatever that I have per book thing. So that's one idea for in person. And then I was trying to figure out how I would translate that into digital, right? So most of our readers were finding either on Facebook or Instagram or through swaps. And so that's, I think, where really the like short story or the free chapter somehow comes in. So it's possible if you like, if a short story before the world, the first book begins makes sense, go ahead and do that. That's sort of always been around, but I wanted to go through some different ideas. I did also hear this last week somebody from Story Origin say he always puts something at the end of the book so that something that like pertains to the book that once you've read it, it will make sense to you and it's sort of enticing. And then he gets data on like who actually finished the book, which is kind of nice, right? So you'd be thinking about that as well. So reader magnets, they have the same name, but really one of them is capturing cold audience and one of them is almost rewarding warm audience. That's how I'm thinking about it. So one way that is different that I didn't know about is alternate point of view scenes. So I think this works especially well in like romance, especially if you have like a one point of view book. Maybe it's just from her perspective, and you can give like the climax, love scene where he declares his love, maybe from his point of view. That's quite easy to write, I think. Um, I mean, typically, you kind of already have the details of what's happening. You just sort of have to get into his head. But you could do this for sci-fi, fantasy, maybe the epic scene or the scene that sort of changes everything, give it from the point of view of somebody else. I think even a side character might be nice. If it's literary, you could do from the point of view of a side character, maybe a pet. That would be kind of funny too. Um, but that that feels almost like a warm readership to do, but I was told by another romance author that that is actually something that is enticing cold readers as well, but especially from like his point of view or like the point of view that is not main to the book. So something to keep in mind. Something definitely for warm readers is a what happens after mini epilogue. I love epilogues as a reader. I think that they're great, but I always look for them. So I think that this would be difficult for me not to put in to the book, but this would be fun to be like, click this link and you'll get the hidden mini epilogue. And that would be a fun way to track your data there. Um, this the characters' journal pages, or maybe like letters between the characters, either before or during or after, might make sense for a lot of literary or maybe historical fiction or historical romance. I mean, I'm sure you could figure this out even if you are some other genre, maybe not mystery or thriller. I don't really know. Maybe it would work out. A deleted scene collection. I have that on the list because I think some people have a lot of deleted scenes. Mine always tend to like be more merged scenes. But I actually did write a quote lost scene for my next one, Next Love, and that is going to be available for people for warm readers. Um, and it's kind of fun because I sort of added like a supernatural element or speculative element to it, and it's just completely different. It is obviously the same characters, the same genre, you know, the same issue that's being worked out, but you're a little more free to sort of be a little bit more speculative, add a little thing, um, little spice there, I mean, I don't mean like spice, like romance, but like a little bit of a difference there. So um, that can kind of be for your warm reader, like, yay, you finished the book and here, find this. Um, Text messages, I think, could be really fun, especially if it's a contemporary or a time travel or even if it's sci-fi in the future or something like that. Um, I think that they can be, especially between side characters, main characters. This is a good way, even for cold reader, just to sort of get the vibe of your book. So be sure you're really in the personality of the characters when they are texting, maybe between friends or between sisters or something. And you can do this on Canva. They have like the little bubbles, and it looks like a phone screen so that, you can even make it like visually look like a phone screen text conversation, which I think would be really fun. There was a whole book I read in the early 2000s that was just set in like email. And I think there's a couple of those now, but those that that was one of the funniest books ever, because you can sort of play on the idea that text doesn't have a herd tone to it, so people misunderstand or people get cc'd on things, and just sort of have fun playing with that. um I think like the side characters, a lot of people like side characters tend to be the people that a lot of readers fall in love with, or just like find that they relate to. So if you could do like a character spotlight story, something that's happening in their life, this does take a little bit more thought. Like the very few of these are things you can do in one afternoon, maybe like a lost chapter, but a side character spotlight story, what is happening with them. Um, and it doesn't have to be long, honestly. Maybe something has come about, that you thought like, oh, that would be fun to add to it, to the book, but maybe it would make just too much. Um, I know a lot of you work really hard on your side characters, and a lot of times not all of that information can get into the book. So maybe consider writing a little short story, couple chapters. Um, these, when you think of like a novella, they can go so much faster because um, the reader has the other book to sort of fill in the blank spaces. So you don't have to do as much background or like warming the reader up. So you can just sort of get right to it. So they don't usually tend to take as long to write. So consider that as well. And that would be fun. And especially if you get really into the vibe of the story, you could use that for cold readers as well. Another one, which is one that I use, is a Spotify playlist. You sort of think about what is the musical vibe to your story, maybe what their favorite songs are. I'm reading one by Rebecca Yarros, and they're always talking about the songs, and now I feel like I have to go find find those songs. So if at the end of the book it had a Spotify playlist, I would totally, just to see what does that song sound like. It is possible to do like a commentary on the songs as well if you're super into music. Writing up like why you chose that song, or you could even like you could write that from the perspective of the author or from the perspective of the characters, like what is it about that song. Another one is the letter that they never sent. So maybe a letter that could have been written during the story but never got written and was never sent. For any sort of maybe mystery, thriller, sci-fi, fantasy, and map and location guide, that is kind of for fantasy, is like one of the number ones. I think people are real map nerds who are fantasy readers. Forgive me if that insults you, but I think that seems to be like the number one thing that fantasy readers are always looking for. If you have a really complicated story or like a dual timeline or maybe an epic story, I would think about doing a timeline of events. This would probably help you just as the writer as well. But having a visual breakdown of like what's happening when with the key story moments in each character, you could probably even add in like maybe little tidbits of what the characters do, like making for dinner or whatever, and just having like a little bit more information um, for all these different side characters. And again, you could use Canva for that, where you're just sort of giving a timeline mapped out. Um, if you are very visual, doing a character aesthetic board, either through Canva or on Pinterest with a link to it, is an amazing idea. People really like the vibe, like what is the vibe that I'm going to feel? And if you like feel those colors, and some of you are so good at this, that is, I think, gets people right into it. You could also do recipes from the story world. So that's something that I did for Bended Love. If you get to the end of Bended Love, you get a link to get the little recipe book. Recipes, I will tell you, the commentary around recipes is copyrighted, but the recipe itself is not. So the ingredients list is not. You do have to rewrite the instructions. You are not allowed to copy other people's instructions or any of the commentary that any blog has. But the ingredients list is not copyright written. So you can write down the ingredients and then you can write the instructions however you want, but just make sure that you know that there's like rules about that. You could also do that like in a way that they can download. You could also do it in a way that maybe put it on your website and there's just a link to it. I would definitely take any recipe that didn't have 1,000,002 words before the actual recipe. That would be great. And if they made it a movie casting list and why, like who would be the actor and why you would choose them. And you could talk from the point of view of like the casting director if you want. Bonus conflict scene, bonus fight scene, bonus, I don't know, it kind of depends. Bonus murder that's happening in your murder. Again, any of these written either from the point of view of the main character or a side character, and anything that carries the same feel as the book. Alternate ending, that what if version, like what would have happened, sort of that like, butterfly effect. If that happened, if this happened, how things would have changed. I think this would be really fun to do. But that would take a little bit of time. And this is a couple of these would be fun to do audibly. Maybe, whether it's your voice or using AI to make a voice, like maybe it's exclusively audio. I think that would be really interesting. I even have marked down here, like you could start out as like the cry for help over ham radio and have it like then go from there, and almost like an old radio show. I used to love those. It just sort of depends on what your story is about, right? Secrets file. I think this is fun, and I want to figure out a way to do this, like, to have like that top secret little stamp on, this sort of as a visual, but a list of hidden truths about characters readers wouldn't otherwise know. Maybe just making up secrets about them. Like you feel like you're gossiping about your characters, but I feel like that would be so fun. And you could give away a lot of information that you as a writer have tucked away, but just couldn't find a place to put it in the book. I think that would be so much fun. And just like visually, you could do that on Canva where like it just, looks like a file, almost like the CIA has a file on them. And even though like your book's not spy or anything, you could have like this file sort of put together and just, like has an unhealthy relationship with pastries, or something, unhealthy addiction or whatever to coffee. Like just depending on what your vibe is in the book, you could keep that. It doesn't have to be like a spy book, to have sort of that visual of that, FBI character file on them. One idea that I like as well is like a podcast episode, whether you write up a transcript of the podcast or actually record it and put it in a secret link. Now, a secret podcast does cost money. Um, you could download the audio and put it on your website and then have like that page hidden. I'm trying to think. And then that link, be found only by certain people. Other than that, like having a private podcast does, like hosted where they could listen to it on Spotify, that does cost money. But this is an idea, like depending on how big you want your book to be or the series, if you think that it's going to be big or it already is big, that might be worth it to you. A lot of podcast hosting starts out at like $10 a month. Some of it is free, depending on just like how much bandwidth you're sort of asking for them. So I would look into that, but I mean, if you have an epic series or people are moving around a lot, or there's like a small town podcast set, talking about all the gossip of the small town of where your books are set, would be so fun. Like it's super fun. Not to like distract you from the actual writing, but that would be really fun. And then obviously for warm readers, like where are they now? Like little snapshot cards, like maybe make them up like almost as Facebook posts where you could sort of see where they are. So people can sort of check up on them. And all you have to do is kind of like announcements of, people just sort of posting on there. Again, this is kind of with warm readers, but at the same time, I have seen this happen in social media where people sort of jump on like, oh my gosh, that's so funny. Look at this. This is totally how they would react. If it was, if the world was, if they lived in our world, like this is how they would react to the news this week. And then the fans sort of jump on that. And then other people who haven't read it want to be part of it. And so they actually go and get the book and start reading it. So it can work in your marketing that way. So there are, you can do that. You can also do just the regular, like one or two chapters free. I actually have mine up on Curios. And then I made just QR codes so that people can go get them. That is a really easy way to do it. Curios is making it really easy for people to download extras to their Kindle or just read it on their phone. I also heard from one of the podcasts this week, let me see if I can find it, that they were talking about all the national days. There's like these websites where they talk about all these like it's like yesterday was National Winston Churchill Day. Like how was that even a thing? I don't know. So in the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success podcast with Penny, I don't know how to say her name, and Amy Cornell, they were talking about these national days. And I was thinking about this from the point of view of a reader magnet. It would be fun to sort of make a moment in time or short story on a specific holiday. Like what are they doing on the 4th of July? What are they doing at Christmas? Or, how do they get everyone together at Thanksgiving, especially if it's like family, or like wherever your place is set, wherever your book is set. But it would also be fun to find one of those crazy national days and like just have sort of a short story. Maybe you can sort of push yourself by giving yourself, a word limit, and then the character that you're going to write about, and like one thing that like has to happen. Like it's National Hot Dog Day, and all they want is a hot dog that day. And their boss makes them go out to like eat snails at a French restaurant. I don't know. Like, but a lot of times I think what blocks us on the creativity is like this feeling that I need to do something, but now I don't really know what I'm doing. So sometimes just starting in kind of a goofy way can help you get to a point where you can write something else. And I would say, like, even if you are working on another book now, or this is a really fun, like, writing up a reader magnet is a fun way to sort of regain some energy, maybe refocus, like giving yourself a little bit of a break. I would, if this is your first book or your second book or whatever, but you haven't been doing a whole lot of marketing, I would try to figure out a reader magnet before you get your book out. Like, figure out what it is that you are going to put out there for the cold reader and what you are going to put out there to thank the warm reader. And have some fun with it. Like, this like checklist on how Anna's going to survive her double shift. It's fun. There's nothing. It took me a maybe half an hour. I had fun brainstorming with my kid, and that's it. And it's just a fun little thing that people can do. I made up a little bookmark, and there we go. All right. So I want you guys to have fun with this. Let me know if you have other ideas. And in fact, I am going to download this and give you guys a link where you can download all of these ideas. But yeah, tell me if you have another idea or something that you have done that worked really well. You can always DM me on Instagram or TikTok, but I would love to hear about your reader magnets that have worked out. And of course, if you guys have somebody who you want on the show, let me know, or have them DM me or email me. And if you are listening on audio, please like and subscribe to whatever app you're on. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe there. I think it's called the same thing. But other than that, I will see you next week for Craft and Connect.